Hey everyone, this is Jody Vesley here again with the Heartway Pastor and Missionary Caregiver Podcast. We are in season 5, episode 6. Sorry, it's been a while since my last episode. Life has been busy, and this is still a really important part of what I feel called to do, and I feel that it is beneficial to those of you out there who listen regularly, and those of you who pop in and out, or those of you who are just finding this podcast. Uh, Really, the point of the podcast is just to help those who are in ministry, or really just any Christians who are just thinking through things from a heart-based level. So we're here to help with issues at the source. And so today in this season, we're dealing with making decisions, which is it's an issue that we all face, right? Is what decision to make. And knowing that. And so today we're going to look specifically at who should and shouldn't be involved in that process. um, it's not always so clear, and sometimes we go to the wrong people for advice in making decisions, and sometimes we skip over the people we should very much include in making decisions. And I don't want this just to be a really basic level podcast without much depth. I want this episode to get you thinking, get you questioning uh, some things, help you have some conversations that need to be had, and really just to take this seriously, because I think this is really much more of an issue than you may realize. I want to start this episode today off with a story that is in general terms, because I don't want anyone to be directly affected by this story. But one time there was a man, let's say his name was Ben, who was serving in foreign missions. And let's say he was serving in a culture that had a collectivist mindset when it comes to decision making. What I mean by this is that, opposed to the typical American way of doing decision making, where we make decisions individually, more individually, and based on how we are affected individually, decisions are based more on how the decision affects families, our families, and maybe even our country. That would be more of the collectivist mindset. So some collectivist cultures include Mexico and the Philippines. Well, Ben was personally discipling a man of a collectivist culture, and he was trying to help a man who was trying to discern if he was called to serve in ministry. He was pouring into him, he was discipling him, he was doing everything he could to help him, and thought maybe this man could be the person that one of the people who sticks with this ministry that the missionary was called to in this foreign field. Well, let's say that during that time, as Ben was pouring into this man who was exploring maybe a call to ministry, let's say he visited America during this time. Let's say he was married to an American. And let's say that he spoke with the extended family that he had there about this whole situation, about several different things going on in his life, and even about baptism, because his story of baptism was much different than how traditional Baptist in America view baptism. And let's say that during this time, as he's in America, he speaks with extended family that he had there about this whole situation, and that his family was extremely American and Baptistic in their culture. And upon consulting with this extended family and even his extended family's church, who was Baptist and would baptize, anyone and everyone who was willing, that hasn't been what they consider to be scripturally baptized, that they um, let's say that they decided that they should baptize this guy, and that this guy also, upon consulting with the family and church, um, that he was on board with this also because they felt this way, and so they baptized this man immediately, and then also make him a part of their American church and their American church membership, which in turn left this man in quite a predicament as his residence was not in America. And it also left Ben in a predicament because now this man was under the shepherding of a pastor in an American church. And Ben was confused about now this role with this particular man. Wow. I mean, even as I tell this story, it's confusing. Like it's such an odd story, but it's based on a true story. And so this story shows how decision making can vary across cultures, right? Just because different cultures make decisions involving different people, it doesn't mean that it is necessarily unbiblical, right? Um, that's cultures go through these decision-making processes differently. I think the story that I just shared is just sad. This is really sad and unfortunate for everyone involved. And I think maybe it became clear that maybe this wasn't the best decision after it was made. However, it does go to show how incredibly important it is to know who should be involved in decision making. First and foremost, God should be involved, right? This isn't like rocket science. This is the first person who should be involved in our decision making, and this crosses cultures. Regardless of what culture you're in, God should be first. So we seek His will through prayer and reading His Bible. We seek His plan through prayer, reading His Bible, and also through obedience, right? And in doing this, we pray for wisdom and for God to help us in our decision making, and for open doors and closed doors and things like this, which we talked about open and closed doors in our previous episodes of this season. I hope you have had a chance to listen to those. Then after we involve God, we need to include our spouse, right? We are at one with our spouse biblically. Includes the decisions that we make. This should cross cultures, but may look differently in different cultures. Like how I talk with my wife before making a decision may look different than how someone in a different culture may consult with their wife before making a decision. My wife and I, we make decisions pretty equally and consult with each other pretty equally, and so not every culture is so much like that, but it's just something to keep in mind. Uh, After our spouse, right? We need to make sure we're including our spouse in major decision making, right? We should probably include those who will be directly affected, like our kids, right? Especially in the situation if we're moving somewhere. Notice I said directly. affected. This does not include extended family in the American culture. A lot of people are indirectly affected when you move, but who are the ones actually moving? Those directly affected. And you can consider this with other decisions too, right? Who is directly affected by this decision? Who is not directly affected? And so I think a lot of the times when I'm counseling and when I'm coaching people and when I'm hearing their stories, a lot of issues come up because uh, people are not being uh, consulted in the decision making process that should be. They're not being involved. They're not having a voice. They're not in the know. And then also there's some that shouldn't be that are being included, and that usually includes some other relatives. But we'll get into that in a little bit. It would also be wise to include some wise counsel, right? This is also biblical. You can tell a lot about who can provide wise counsel by their lives and the counsel they have given to you and others to determine if it was in fact wise counsel or not. Parents don't always provide wise counsel. Now, for minors, of course, they need to listen to their parents. It's like biblical to do this, and legally their parents are responsible for them. Parents, you're responsible for your teenagers, right? But there comes a point, especially when the kids are grown and out of the house, where uh, you're not directly responsible for your kids anymore, and those kids are directly responsible for themselves. And so, parents, be careful not to provide counsel when it's not asked for, because counsel that's not asked for is really just kind of like criticism, and it's not helpful for your kids, even if you think it is sometimes. So, and also, as parents, sometimes we, without realizing it, provide selfish counsel because we don't want our kids to make decisions, maybe sometimes that would move them away from us or something like this. So I do want to take a few moments also and point out who shouldn't be involved in the decision making process. In the American culture, if you're an adult, and especially if you're married, you don't need to include your parents or extended family in the decision making process. And this is biblical, right? We are to leave and to cleave. This is a biblical idea. And part of that is even in our decision making. However, if you think your parents or extended family can offer some wise counsel, and you and your spouse feel comfortable with doing that, and you're on the same page with asking for their advice and counsel, that's fine. But uh, it's not necessary. Also, you also shouldn't just blindly take the advice of someone you admire and respect that isn't directly affected by whatever decision you're making. So, for instance, if you're a foreign missionary, don't take foreign missionary advice from someone who hasn't been or isn't currently a foreign missionary. Like a pastor who's always been stateside can give some really bad advice, although well intended. Remember, there's safety in a multitude of counselors, right? So don't just, if you're going on to the foreign mission field, don't just talk to some well-known and well-respected pastor who's only been a pastor or who's only really been stateside and served in that capacity, because they really just don't know. You don't really know until you've had that experience. And so I've heard a lot of bad advice given to missionaries, really any stateside and foreign, from pastors who just don't have an experience doing that, and unfortunately, usually they're giving advice to people who serve in cultures that are significantly different than their culture and aren't taking that into consideration as well. And so again, it may not be bad to talk to these people, but it's not required, and you need to be very careful speaking with people that you respect if you're talking to them, especially if you're talking to them about making decisions in areas that they're not well versed and well educated and well experienced in. Whew. Yeah, just so much comes into my mind and my heart in this episode. I don't want to get myself into trouble, but honestly, you're responsible as an individual for the decisions you make, and you need to be seeking God first and foremost, right? And then your spouse, then those directly affected, also consult with some wise counsel, not unwise counsel, obviously. So if someone, let's elaborate on that a little bit more. If someone's life isn't like what you would like your life to be, even if they're, someone who should be able to offer wise counsel, you don't need to go to them and ask them for advice and decision making. It may be better that you don't. There's a lot more bad examples out there than good examples when it comes to how we should live our life and different things like this. And so I hope you can reflect on this some. And I know that probably not everyone listening is involved in making a decision right now, an important, impactful decision, but you may be, and you may be soon. And if not soon, then at some point, we come to these points where we have to make big decisions. And so it's important to be prepared for that. And so I hope that you can reflect on that some today in this episode. I would like to conclude today with just some brainstorming, and maybe I can get some feedback from my listeners. That would be great. If I could get some feedback from you guys, especially if you listen on Apple Podcast, can you rate this podcast if you don't mind, and leave your reviews? That would be a great help to myself and this Heartway Pastor Missionary Caregiver Ministry, as we're trying to help more and more people in ministry and their families with different issues at the source. But one thing I'm kind of brainstorming right now is our next season of podcast. I have the episodes picked out, the different topics for the next few episodes of this season. We do 10 episodes per season, but for season 6, which are coming up on, after some conversations I've had recently, I feel like maybe it would be a good idea to theologically and with wisdom, biblical wisdom, address some different ideas and different maybe sayings and different things like this that affect our churches and our ministries and us and our thinking. One that comes to mind that I've been talking to someone with recently is this phrase, modest is hottest, and everything that can be included in that saying. Some other things come to mind too. Let go and let God. These types of ideas um, could be good to unpack and really get to the the root of where these sayings come from, and and really unpack everything involved in these ideas and have a deeper discussion surrounding them. Because as everyone's listening, especially if you're in ministry, the culture around us is changing wherever you are, and some sayings we may need to think through everything included in those and the source of those sayings, and don't just spout them off because they come to mind and we've heard them and we agree with some facet of them, but maybe we need to think deeper about some of these things and see the potential downfalls of using different terms, how it can affect our parenting, how it can affect our discipleship, how it can affect our ministries, and things like this, like just weird ideas that come from the Bible that are sometimes misused out of context and are uh, studied well within the culture of the time and then applied well to the culture of our time. Just thinking through things too, like women being silent in the church, right? And so some people take that as far as to say, like, women shouldn't even be talking ever in the church about anything of any importance, and women shouldn't be praying in the church. It's crazy to think about, right? Maybe if you're listening to this and you haven't heard of that before, but it's a very real thing that happens, and so I think it would be good to unpack some of these things and look at the source of them and look at how they were, where they came from, if they came from some biblical ideas or not, because some of them I think did not come from the Bible. I don't know where they came from, but it could be interesting to dive into the source of those and then see how they affect our parenting, our ministry, and our personal lives and how we interact with people. I'm really passionate about this kind of thing, and I think it could be super beneficial. And in this next season, if we do go that route, I would love to get some feedback as I speak, and maybe even address some of that feedback I get in other episodes. And so, again, just hit me up. This is Jody, and you can contact me at Jody at heartwaycare.org and let me know your thoughts on that. Well, I continue to enjoy doing this podcast. I love doing it, and I hope you guys get a lot out of it, and it's helpful to you too and encouraging. Until next time, this is the Heartway podcast where we seek to help with issues at the source.